Hi there, and welcome to the Anita Chat podcast. I'm your host, Anita Rombo, and this is the podcast for growth-oriented women to have authentic, real talk. Nothing is off the table here, but as an intuitive self-relationship coach, you'll find the content gravitates towards mindset, intentional action, spirituality, and all things wellness. So if you're ready to learn, laugh, show up, and glow up to be the best version of yourself, grab your favorite bevy, settle in, and we've got lots to chat about. Hello, my dear friends, and welcome to another episode of I Need to Chat. I hope you guys are doing well. I am not going to lie, this episode is a long time coming. And the reason why I say that is because I have this long laundry list of episode topics in my computer. And so in preparation for these weekly podcasts, I tend to go into that list and pick a couple of topics that resonate with me, and I'll start drafting out what it is that I'd like to say. And then eventually you will hear it on the podcast. Well, this topic has been on my list for quite some time. So it's something that is definitely that I wanted to share with you. And it's definitely also been something that I started to script. So in fact, this morning, as I was going to record this episode and plan and prepare for it, I noticed a previous draft of what I wanted to say that I started about 5 months ago. But clearly it didn't come to completion because it hasn't come out into the world. And that was also because I wasn't really feeling called to see it through. And I feel very differently today because I feel like there's some global and collective events that we can all relate to that make it a little bit more meaningful. And I also believe that there's a lot of personal events that happened to me literally the day before this collective event that I'm referring to that also makes this a little bit more meaningful. And so the time feels right, and I'm going out with it, and here it is. So if you're curious, the global or collective event that I'm referring to is actually the passing of Queen Elizabeth. So as you know, Queen Elizabeth passed away last week. She was 96. And so that's a pretty long, full life. And during that long, full life of 96 years, she served as the queen for 70 years. Now, I'm sure you and I both have not had personal run-ins with the queen, but we are definitely aware of her. And as the world mourns her and acknowledges the passing of her, we're doing a lot of talking about her legacy. And having said that, the day before her passing, I had 3 personal experiences, again, dealing with death, grief, bereavement, and leading me to think more about legacy. And those personal events happened within the span of a day, literally hours apart from one another. And so one of those events for me was a Facebook notification alerting me to a friend's birthday. And while normally that would be very welcome and much needed because I couldn't survive without those Facebook reminders about people's birthdays, this reminder in particular hurt because it was related to a friend of mine that passed away unexpectedly and way too soon last year. And this would be her first birthday where she's not on this planet. And so obviously there's just a lot of grief and sorrow that came up for me in response to receiving that notification. My heart felt really heavy. And then in the span of a few hours, I also heard that one of my university programs, I did my MBA, a former dean of that MBA program also passed away. Now, I hadn't seen or interacted with this dean in many, many years, and I knew him obviously in a very different capacity than I would my dear friend. However, he had also left a huge mark on me, especially as a young student. And this dean was an incredible human, an exemplary leader, a strong visionary, very committed to community and service. And I remember this one chance encounter that we had where our paths literally crossed. And we had a small but very meaningful and impactful conversation. And it's really left its mark with me still to this day. In that moment, he was just so present with me. I felt him attentively listening to me. I felt heard. I felt understood. And I was given some very sound strategic advice that really resonated with me deeply and still something that I use to this day. So, of course, hearing about him passing was also something that I was saddened by. The third incident in the span of the same morning was sitting in a meeting in a newer team. So, not really familiar with all the people around the table just yet, getting to know these people.
And one girl in particular was somebody that I hadn't interacted with much over the summer. And I just assumed it was because it was summertime and maybe she was taking some long overdue vacation. But she was back in person. And at the end of the meeting, she was emotional and she expressed her sincere support for this team in welcoming her back to work, with it being her first day since her husband passed, and all the support and care and concern that she felt that she received from this team while she was dealing with all of those life events. Wow, what powerful energy. Again, dealing with these same concepts over and over. And it really got me thinking about our legacy. And legacy can mean many different things to different people. Some people may think of it as the family you create or the lineage, right? The grandchildren and the great grandchildren you leave behind. And some people may associate legacy with more a material sense, like the assets or finances or inheritances you leave behind. And while I think all of that could be a definition of legacy, for me, what really resonates when I think of legacy is, what do we want to be known for? As we collectively reflect on the lives of global icons and what they did or didn't do, or what they stood for, or whether we individually reflect on the people that were near and dear to us that we have loved and lost along the way, we often think about the ways they shaped our lives. This may sound morbid, but if you were to attend your own funeral, I want you to think about what people would say about you for your eulogy. Or if that does sound too morbid, if you were writing your own introduction, maybe for a keynote speech or your bio for that about the author section of your book or your website, or if you were a fly on the wall listening to someone describing you, what would you want to be expressed? So I want us to think about, what is the mark that we have made on others or that we would like to make on others? What are the things? What are the things that we want to be known for? What are the causes or beliefs that we stand up for? Who have we helped and how have we impacted and served? What has been our unique contribution to the world? These are all things that come up for me when I think of legacy. And basically, it comes down to something that I mentioned time and time again on the podcast, all for different purposes. But really, what is your why? Because your why is that legacy. And so once you have gotten clear on what is your why and what is it that you stand for and what it is that you want to be remembered for, I think it's super important for us to reflect on, how are we embodying or living out those moments day to day. So for example, if you want to be known or remembered by your family as somebody who's committed to them, what does that look like each day? If you want to be known as someone who gives back to the community, what does that look like over time, right? Let's get really specific. Does that mean that we're volunteering? Does that mean that we give money to charity every month or part of our paycheck? Does it mean that we donate to the food bank a couple of times a year? Simply put, in order to make sure that we are remembered the way that we want to be remembered, we can reverse engineer what we want to be known for and make it a reality. It is the small things that we do every day that lead to that big impression. As a writer of your own story, whether it be the eulogy, the keynote speech, the author bio, or the stories passed down in your families for generations to come, I want you to remember that you have the power to write your own vision for yourself into reality. Not only do you write the story, but you act the script that the narrators will one day read about you. And with that, folks, I will see you next week. Bye for now.
Thank you so much for tuning into this episode of the Anita Chat podcast. If you haven't taken a minute to leave a review, I would absolutely love to hear from you. All you need to do is to search for the show, click your star rating, and type in a few words. Also, if there's a specific topic you'd like to see covered in this podcast, if you'd like me to be your coach, or if you want to just chat, feel free to send me an email or shoot me a message through my IG, which you'll find in the show notes. The show notes will also contain any links to the freebies that were referenced in this episode. Until next time, friends, it's been great chatting with you.